Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United transfer news. Lots to get into. What's going on at Manchester United as Amorim goes from a season in crisis to a transfer window in crisis. Let's be honest, everywhere he looks at the moment, it's not getting better. Jadon Sancho, is he returning? Marcus Rashford, is he off to Barca or are they pushing for somebody else? And if they are, where does he go? It's deadline day for Bruno Fernandes, the Saudi deadline. Will it pass with Bruno Fernandes as a United player? Amorim certainly needs that to happen. What's happening with the striker situation? We spoke about Delap last night. What's going on there as well? A few other bits to talk about as well. I want to talk about why Jonathan David never happened. Why are Man United fans booing Manchester United out on this tour? And a very big indicator from Ruben Amorim as to what he really thinks about this tour as well. So lots to get into this show as well. Don't forget to throw your questions in. And what a fantastic bit of positivity we've got for you as well, because we're sponsored by HelloFresh on the show today. We have been working with HelloFresh in the past. What a perfect show for the morning, especially as we're approaching the weekend. HelloFresh, so what's it all about? It's convenient, it's simple, and it's straight to your door. We've been working with HelloFresh before. As I said, loads of options. Go to the website, something for everyone, whether you're picky, adventurous, or just want something decent after a long day. This month, I received a box of absolutely brilliant food, packed with delicious stuff. We're talking about proper, easy to prepare stuff. So when you get your food, it comes in a box and you get your recipe card. So this is, let's start off with this one. This is sticky mustard, pork belly and red wine stew with dauphinoise potatoes, asparagus and tender stem. So that's what it looks like. You get your card, you get all your ingredients, and then you get all your instructions and nutritional values on the back as well. I've also got peri peri honey and lime chicken skewers with roasted onion and chive potato salad, as you can see there. You get these cards with it, instructions, all the ingredients, loads to pick out from the website, a feast for your eyes, and you open the box, everything's there, no faffing about with shopping lists or measuring things, and you are the master chef. It's all sorted for you. In fact, I'm cooking one of these later on, actually. I might just go live on my channel and do an afternoon cooking with Goldbridge. I think we need a bit of a chill, so I'll show you how it works anyway. But the best bit is the exclusive offer for you. United Stand viewers can use the code United50 for an incredible 50% off your first box, plus 20% off for the next month, and free desserts for life. So this is an amazing offer. 50% off your first box, and you can get 3 or 4 menus out of that. So 50% off, and then 20% off for the rest of the month, and you get free desserts for life with the code United50 when you sign up. So check it out. Link in the description. Thank you very much to HelloFresh. Fantastic. Nice little bit of positivity for you there on a time at Manchester United where it's not that great. I mean, we're not actually HelloFresh with Man United, are we? It's more of the same, unfortunately. So where to start? So I think let's try and start on, let's start on a positive, but let's start on a reality. Where are we at the moment when it comes to Manchester United's summer transfer window? Because I do plenty of videos on That's Football, Man City in crisis, you know, all that lot. Man United are in crisis. I mean, come on. It's the easiest open goal in the world to say that Manchester United are in a crisis. I do not want Jamie Vardy at Manchester United. It actually makes me want to throw up. And if you want to make me throw up, that's absolutely fine. I know you're a bunch of trolls at times and you take great pleasure in me getting stressed. Jamie Vardy makes me want to throw up. I don't understand this. I don't think people watch football if they think Jamie Vardy should be playing up front for Man United. I saw him a few times for Leicester this season. This is not the Jamie Vardy that won a title a decade ago. So I don't want Jamie Vardy. In reality, what are Man United going to do next, though? We are in a crisis. The CEO yesterday was talking about being prudent. I think we all know what prudent means. It means we're not going to be outrageous in this summer transfer window. We're not going to be aggressive in this transfer window. We're going to be prudent. And prudent means we've got to work within our means and do the best with what we've got. Ruben Amorim has spoken about challenging and suffering and patience. These are not aggressive words. You know, this is sort of like we're under attack. We haven't got much ammunition. We've got to work with what we've got and be organised. This is not we're under attack, right, unlock that cupboard because we've got bloody ammunition in there, we're going to war. And that's what United need to do because this is football. This is not bloody, you know, local government with limited budgets who can't afford to bloody deal with potholes in the road. This is a joke. We're acting like we're broke. And if we are broke, then we're finished. We're literally broke. As a football club, you've got to come out fighting, and we're cowering in the corner at the moment. And that's very obvious from what the manager's saying, and more importantly, from what the CEO is saying. I'm looking at Newcastle this morning. There's talk of Guehi. There's talk of Mbeumo. There's talk of, I forget, 2 other signings they're looking at as well. This is Newcastle. This is not Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea or Man City. This is Newcastle, showing more ambition than us. It's scary where Man United are at the moment, and I suggest they pull their finger out their arse and actually start acting like a big football club, because we are basically putting up a white flag. Well, we're not in the Champions League. We're not in Europe. Oh, wow, it's me. How are we going to ever get back? Why are the fans not crying in a corner with us and patting us on the head saying it doesn't matter? Oh, look at us. It's not our fault. Whoa, we're finished. We're rubbish. We are finished. We are rubbish if you don't get up and start acting like a bloody big football club, you cowards. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think everyone's just going to go, feel sorry for Manchester United and let us back in? They're going to go, ha, see you later. Bye in the windscreen. You know, it's embarrassing the way we're behaving at the moment. You've also got the manager of Manchester United taking a team to the other side of the world being booed. Like, we're being booed over there. Like, there were boos at that match yesterday. Some people may agree with that. Some people may not agree with that. But we're being booed. And you know, what was the point in this tour? You've got Ruben Amorim after the game saying the positive is no one's picked up any injuries. There's still a game for tomorrow. Does that sound like a manager that wants to be there, by the way? The positive is we've not picked up any injuries. I mean, this is literally a cash grab. So, also, the CEO is on the other side of the world when other CEOs are conducting business for more successful clubs than us. So we're actually just wasting time over there as well, aren't we? And people will say you can still do business when you're out on the other side of the world. You can't be, I'm sure it's really impressive when you're trying to get a player, when you're on a bloody Zoom call and it keeps breaking up because you're the other side of the world, when another CEO is probably meeting a player in person. It's just embarrassing the way this football club is being run. And don't tell me it doesn't make any difference to signing players when your CEO is on the other side of the world, because it bloody well does. Of course it does. Other clubs aren't on the other side of the world. They're doing business face to face with agents. Our CEO is in fucking Malaysia and Hong Kong, which are nice parts of the world, but I'm saying the effing part in an angry way because of how we're conducting our football club. Ridiculous. And we're also cutting jobs. And our CEO's got on a fucking plane, probably business class, to the other side of the world, when he needs to sit his ass in his bloody office and start speaking to agents and players to get us back where we are, because we won't get invited there next year. We're not going to get invited there next year. Did you see the welcoming party at Hong Kong Airport? The end of Love Actually. The closing scene's got more people there than that. It's just an embarrassment. It's all an embarrassment, and they need to sort it out because we are a club in crisis. It doesn't matter losing that game yesterday, by the way, and it won't matter if we lose tomorrow. We're at a low point anyway. But what we do next really, really does matter. So, let's go through the vast array of transfer news for us this morning. And there is quite a lot. I mean, look, where do we go next after Liam Delap is probably the big thing. I'm not, even this morning, I got told I still wouldn't rule out Man United pulling that Delap deal off. So, I'm still not going to say what I really think if Delap doesn't come to Man United, because I still think there's a chance it will happen. But a lot of people are saying it's not going to happen. Where would Man United go next? Jonathan David, no Premier League clubs even looking at him, even though he's free. He's apparently going to Napoli. Very quiet around Gyökeres. Sesko's been linked to us by Bild, Germany outlet Bild, which can be unreliable, have linked us to Sesko because Faval knows him from the RB Leipzig days. I mean, the only thing I would say about the striker situation is, let's say, in a hypothetical fantasy world, Man United miss out on Delap and sign Sesko. Who the hell is running this football club? How can you go from Delap to Sesko? How can Delap be ahead of Sesko? I mean, it's crazy. So we'll have to just wait and see. I think in the relation to the striker situation, we haven't got a definitive answer on what's happening with Delap yet. So it's all a little bit where we're going to go next. But hopefully that will get resolved very quickly, because where we go next matters. All I know about the Delap story, and I think we all know this, is that when Ruben Amorim came into the club, he fully expected to get Kenda and Gyökeres this summer. He may not get either of them. And all I know is that Delap is Wilcox's obsession, and Wilcox is basically in charge of transfers. He is now the director of football, technical director, whatever you want to call him. So where we go next, I'm not too sure, but obviously we need some resolution on that, because this is the most important position for Manchester United. We have Cunha, who, can I just say, big shout out to Cunha, because he, moving to Manchester United, has unearthed a stat none of us knew we needed in our life. It's there again. You've probably seen it this morning. Apparently, Cunha's walked more than anybody in the Premier League this season. You know what? He needs to get sponsored by Whoop, because he's getting his steps in then, isn't he? I mean, I never even knew this stat was a thing until a player signs for Manchester United. So Cunha apparently walks more than anybody in the Premier League. Second to Virgil van Dijk. I mean, it's incredible. What a stat. Started already, hasn't it? Man United sign a foreign player and leave it to the media. We'll find a way. We'll find a way to be negative before he's even put a shirt on. Incredible. Incredible. But look, yeah, I think now that Cunha's coming to Man United, we need to get this striker sorted out. It's a very important position. And as we were talking about last night, it's always very disappointing and happens a lot. I mean, look, this is not breaking news, is it? This is not surprising news. How many times in the last 10 years of summer transfer windows have we had this conversation about not getting plan A? We knew a striker was important. Omar Barada said yesterday, we've been working on this transfer window for months and we've got lots of plans. But it's very clear that you can work on something for months and then mess it up. And at the moment, they seem a little bit rudderless around who their striker's going to be. Hopefully, they have got some decent plans to shift somewhere else. So I think that one's very much a watching brief. But to people saying Jonathan David, apparently he's going to Napoli. Still very quiet around people like Sesko, Gyökeres, Osimhen. But I don't know whether United are in those races. Obviously, Mbeumo's been mentioned. I think yesterday was very much the reality bite from the nonsense that was floating around on Monday. Remember numerous nonsense British reports about Man United being in advanced talks with Mbeumo. Yesterday, very much Newcastle would be leading that race. So what's the truth around Mbeumo? I think he's another player that apparently wants Champions League football, and we haven't got it. So Newcastle do, and they've got the money. We don't have the money, apparently, at the moment. We need to sell to buy, and we don't have European football. So we're not particularly in a strong position other than going, we're Manchester United. I mean, we could get, instead of Gary Neville doing the voiceover for the new stadium that's not even been started building yet, maybe we should get Gary on a retainer to just stand in the room when we get talks with a player and go, we're Manchester United, on repeat. We'll have a little button. He could just sit there. We could pay him like 10 grand every time he says it. Gary, now, we're Manchester United, because I don't know what else we've got. I really don't know what else we've got when you're talking to someone like Mbeumo. We haven't got the money at the moment. Wait for us. We're not in Europe. Wait for us. And we're a bit of a mess, but in the future we'll be really good. His face doesn't look convinced. Right, Gary, we're Manchester United. That's all I think we've got at the moment. So the Mbeumo story just looks like the biggest load of nonsense, perpetuated and circulated by people who just want to, spin a yarn, really. And I've got no problem with Mbeumo picking Newcastle. Like, I've seen some people on social media going, if he doesn't want to come to Manchester United, he can piss off. Come on. We're Manchester United. I mean, we're Manchester United in name. If an alien landed who knew loads about football and you didn't tell him the name of Man United, he wouldn't predict we're Man United based on how we play, who our owners are and how we behave. We're not Manchester United. We're called Manchester United, but the Glazers erased that years ago. So I do not have any problem with Mbeumo choosing Newcastle over Manchester United. That's what happens when your football club is run into the ground over a 20-year period by these people who own our football club. You can't say to Mbeumo, oh, lack of ambition. Look at you with your lack of ambition. Hello, I want to go there because they can afford me and they're in the Champions League and they're better than you and their prospects are better than you, and I'm 26 next and I can't afford to waste my career on with Manchester United, I don't have a problem with it. I don't know why people get so... We only want players that play for Man United. Well, I tell you what, you're going to end up with a pile of shit then, aren't you? Because not everyone's going to not everyone's going to behave like Cunha. Fair play to him for having that, desire to come to Man United, but I don't think it's going to be as common anymore. I really don't. The club, as we were talking about last night, I mean, any player with a brain is going to look at it and go, statistically speaking, the chances of me flopping at Man United are far greater than going to somewhere like Newcastle or Chelsea. So I don't have a problem with these players choosing that. And also, I just genuinely don't think we were ever really advanced with Mbeumo anyway. I think it's a player we've probably spoken to his agent and said we're interested in a number of different circumstances if they happen. And that agent probably goes, yeah, well, Newcastle want to talk to us now. See you later. So, and also, as well, if we're talking about systems, Mbeumo suits the Newcastle system more than ours. They actually play with a right winger. So, I look, never say never in football. Man United might have to, in this crisis, start behaving desperately. And desperately can end to good things. Look at the desperation at the end of the summer transfer window 2 years ago, where it was looking really bad. We lost our first 2 games of the season. And might have been 3 years ago, actually. And we suddenly found 120 million under the bed to buy Casemiro and Antony out of nowhere. So that's desperation sometimes can be useful for us as fans. But look, never say never, but it doesn't look good. Do you think we could go for look man, says Liam? We have got good relationships with Atalanta. I mean, look, he would be a plan D. Definitely. I mean, he's not a bad player, but he would be a plan D. It's not. I don't think he's anywhere near. But that might be what we end up with now. Will Sesko going to come here and sing the theme song, says Loffy. Realistically, we aren't getting plan A or B or even H. What are they even doing? We are now being run by Baldrick, says Mike. I just watched Dillit singing Glory Man United. What the hell is going on at my football club, says Nicholas. Saw the match live yesterday, says William, and we were utterly pathetic. Side-to-side passing for 90 minutes with no attacking movement. Fans across Malaysia come to watch and we get a half-assed team who can't score, says William. Look, I respect our worldwide fan base and I understand the excitement when Man United go over there and they haven't been there for years. And I think it's embarrassing that Man United basically go over there for money and talk about going over there for the fans, but they go over there for the money. It's very obvious some players don't want to be there, and it's very obvious the manager doesn't want to be there. And after a game of football, when he's talking about the big positive is not getting any injuries, that's just the biggest giveaway in the world, isn't it? All he's really worried about is not getting any injuries in 2 games they don't need. And at the end of the day, I don't think it helps build the relationship with the fans over in Malaysia and Hong Kong, because there's a lack of trust there now, isn't there? There's a sense that for the fans that they're really excited, quite rightly, but there's an obvious detection that the players don't want to be there and the manager doesn't want to be there, and that doesn't build relationships. You contrast with what they'll be like in the United States in a few weeks' time. Start of the season, they've had a break, they're optimistic, they'll be a lot happier to be there. So it's a bit of a piss take, I think, for the fans out there who are very excited. They're getting a raw end of the deal. But it's all about the money. The club is trying to garner sympathy by reiterating our financial troubles. Instead, it just makes fans frustrated and weakens our standing in the transfer market. It's a terrible business strategy, says Patrick. Yeah, look, what does a salesman do when he's struggling? What does a salesman do when he's struggling for sales and he's in trouble? Does he go out in a crappy car, doesn't do his hair and an old suit? Or does he get himself down, John Lewis, get a nice looking suit, do his hair, have a haircut and clean his car? It's all about perception. Even though something bad might be going on behind the scenes, you present the aura of a successful business. And Man United are there going, with their cap in hand, going, look at us, we're really poor, we're really rubbish. It's a terrible. I agree, Patrick, it's a terrible strategy. Let's just get Osman full stop, says Simply Red. I do think that United, and this is why I'm not sitting here saying it won't happen. I do think when we look at United in these situations under the Glazers, traditionally we have responded to these types of crises by going and doing something ridiculous, like, as I said, Casemiro and Antony, Paul Pogba. We just find 100 million and go and do something. And maybe that's what we will do. But then again, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's here now, and he doesn't like doing that. So, as somebody said yesterday, were we actually a better run club under the Glazers than we are with Sir Jim? Now, I don't like the Glazers, but as Terp says, that won't happen under Sir Jim. So, are we actually? I hate the Glazers and what they've done to Manchester United, but they might have been better than what we are with Sir Jim on the Glazers, because Sir Jim cuts. Sir Jim doesn't do that. So it's going to be very interesting. I've been thinking about United's obsession with beating Chelsea. Do you think it is because Chelsea stole Kenda and United want to get them back, says Chris. There is an obsession with Chelsea. I actually think Sir Jim Ratcliffe or Favell have connections with Chelsea as well, and there might be a resonating sort of rivalry there. But I don't want Chelsea to be our rival. I don't understand. I don't understand why Chelsea, the obsession with Chelsea is really. United looking at Lee Kang from PSG, says Maliki. How much does United get from their YouTube channel, says Kevin? I don't know. Ahmad and Garnacho flipping off the fans and camera, says God Swift. I don't know what that's all about, so I can't comment on it. Marlowe's in the house. Hope you're doing well. I just realised that going so openly for Delap was a tactic to lure Chelsea into a trap. They always go for players other teams want, so when they've agreed a deal with Delap, we go for Gyökeres, says Marlowe. Apparently Chelsea want 2 strikers, by the way. Hi, Mark. Your dream summer window and what players? Can you remind me of that, Ashish? Remind me about that in about 15 minutes. I would definitely come back to that, but I have to move through some of the topical stuff. So, right. Bruno Fernandes, today, deadline day from Saudi. So by the end of today, we should be in the clear with Bruno Fernandes staying at Manchester United, because that deadline has been spoken about. I don't see anything changing. So yes, it could get worse, but I think the deadline was set for today, and I think they will move on. So yeah, I think that would that's potentially a positive. That will be all over today. Although you wouldn't be surprised if the deadline got put back by another week for when he gets. I mean, why give a deadline when he's on the other side of the world and he's got a game tomorrow as well? I would have thought they might do it Sunday night or something, but that looks a positive. Jadon Sancho, right, got to hit this head on. We are fair here. We are strong in our opinions, but we are also fair. There was a story floating around last night that on the pitch, Jadon Sancho said, I'm not going back to Manchester United, or I'm not returning to Manchester United. It was on a BBC Sport news feed, quite rightly picked up by a lot of people, but as we understand, and we've done a bit of digging ourselves, that was a joke. That was a joke by the admin of that BBC Sport page, which probably needs a little bit of feedback, because you're on the BBC Sport page and you're telling jokes, and people sometimes think that that's a credible thing. So it was a joke. He was on his phone, and I think the admin went, oh, he's not returning to Man United. He didn't say that. In no way, shape or form has that been quoted anywhere credibly. So I think you've got to be fair and say that's not a reason to go in on Jadon Sancho. Freedom fighter, absolutely. Not turning up for training all those years, whatever, okay. Probably doesn't want to come back to Manchester United as well. Fair enough. But I always think if something's misquoted or unfair, it's not personal, is it? This is about a footballer's ability to play for Manchester United. What they're like as a person or anything like that is irrelevant to me. And I can find no suggestion that he made that quote. So I don't think we need to comment on that. I think it's great that Jadon Sancho scored last night. Obviously, Chelsea have got to decide whether to give us 25 million and keep him, or give us 5 million and send him back. I still think there's a chance they might send him back, but I don't think we're in a bad position if they do. We only need about 10 million, 15 million from Sancho to make profit on him leaving anyway. We'd get 5 out of Chelsea. So I think we wouldn't struggle doing a deal for Jadon Sancho if Chelsea decide to send him back. They might not decide to send him back now, but look, I'm not really worried about Jadon Sancho. It really doesn't worry me at all. The only thing that would worry me is if Amorim said, we've got no money, we need to keep him. But as I've said, we're going to talk about Rashford next and this Barcelona story and whether it's a positive or a negative. But with regards to Jadon Sancho, I'm not worried at all. I don't care about Sancho FC saying he's going to come back and cook. I'll tell you why he's not in a minute. But him scoring last night was a positive. Like, it's the same as Anthony's loan being a good thing. It's a positive because it just puts him more in the shop window, and all we need to do is move him on. As for him coming back, there is no logical sense for Manchester United to do this. And one positive about us being a business is that we wouldn't do it because he's only got 1 year left on his contract. He's on about 250 grand a week. And even if Amorim said, I want to use him, you'd basically be paying him 250 grand a week to leave for nothing in a year. Logically, it makes no sense at all. So whatever happens with Sancho, it's not in our interest to use him or bring him back anyway, because you'd basically have to give him a new contract to protect his value next summer. Otherwise, look, United fans are going to be very uncertain about Sancho anyway. Then you're going to have to watch him basically run his contract down for a year in a red shirt. Not going to happen. So I think that there's nothing really to worry about in relation to Sancho, and I think it's a good thing that he scored yesterday. Let me talk to you about Marcus Rashford. Now, this is probably one of the biggest stories going on today, this morning. Really, I tell you what, I felt a bit sad this morning because I woke up and I was looking at Barca Times and managing Barca on X, and it was like going back to the days of De Jong. And I've got to say, what Barcelona to me, and it might be an age thing, it's a bit like Real Madrid as well, Bayern Munich. They're just proper football clubs. They're like what we used to be. And they've got fanatical fan bases. They love football. They're really into it. The season ends and they get into their transfer stories just the same as we try to. And it's just nice to be able to immerse yourself in the passion of the Barcelona fan base worldwide and read what's going on. And if you think it's bad about Man United, Barcelona, it's like updates every 5 minutes. So 2 big updates coming out of Barcelona this morning. First of all, Marcus Rashford is willing to take a pay cut to sign for Barcelona, which they see as a real big positive because financially they're still not particularly in the position they maybe were. The second story is that Deco, who I think is their sporting director, is leaning towards Luis Diaz more because he thinks he's a better fit for Barcelona. Now, I don't know what Barcelona fans want, but it's an interesting story because apparently Rashford is, and I understand this completely, Rashford is closed off to any option other than Barcelona. So I think that hopefully that deal will happen. And again, like I say, look, I've been very critical. Look, Rashford used to be one of my favourite players years ago. I've been very critical of Rashford in recent years, and I think it's justified. Like, he's contributed to his own downfall at Manchester United as much as anybody else has, and it's time for a change. But much the same as Scott McTominay, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Anthony, or any other player, once they leave Manchester United, which I think is the best for everybody, there's no reason to want them to fail, and there's every reason to understand why they might succeed. I think we're long past the point of going, why is it that players leave Man United and do so well? The club's a bloody joke. It's got no. And what makes me laugh, actually, and irritates me a little bit, is those fans who try and blame it on the fans. Oh, it's because the fans put too much pressure on them. Oh, it's nothing to do with the fans. Real Madrid put pressure on their fans. Barcelona fans put pressure on their players. It's because of the way the club's run. The environment at Manchester United is toxic. Like, so many players are so unhappy there because of how the club is run, and there's no real feeling of identity or ambition or collectivity. It's the way the club is run. And trust me, because I know some of these people who've left and people around them, it's like you go from Manchester United to even Betis, certainly a Napoli, certainly even, and the clubs are just run better. They're not as big, but they're run better. There's more of a community feel. There's more of a connection from the board down to the players. At Man United, it's just an absolute shit show, and it has been for years. So I think this would be a fantastic move for Marcus Rashford. But I also think it would be a fantastic move for Barcelona, and I don't feel like we're, faking it. I genuinely think that they're looking for a winger to supplement Rafinha and Yamal across a long season. And I think Marcus Rashford in that environment would do quite well. I think who was it we played in the Europa League early season? I think Ten Hag was in charge. It might have been Porto, away from home. He tore them apart from the wing. I think he struggles in the Premier League, but Anthony struggles against Premier League opposition. And look at, I genuinely was talking about this on That's Football last night, and I really think it needs to be mentioned more, but all people want to talk about in the mainstream is the system. There's a reason Spurs and Man United got to the Europa League final, but they're crap in the Premier League. And there's a reason that Anthony has done really well in Spain but can't do it in the Premier League, and it was proven again last night. Cucurella pocketed him easily. It was like watching Anthony in a Man United shirt last night. I felt like I jinxed him because I did the watch-along and I was like, what's all this Anthony hype? It's exactly the same as he is for Man United. But I haven't watched all his Betis games, but apparently he's brilliant for them. It's the same with like Man United in Europe. We're absolutely terrible in the Premier League. We get popped all over the place, but we play these European sides and we're actually quite good. This is why Rashford for Barcelona would be great, because the Premier League is way, way, way more fitter, quicker and intense than other leagues. And we saw it with Rashford against Porto at the start of the season, if that's who we played. He tore them apart. Quick, intense, he tore them apart. Anthony in La Liga has torn a lot of defences apart. Man United and Spurs, terrible in the Premier League. How many teams did we tear apart in the second half because of fitness and speed, even though we're shit in the Premier League? So I think Rashford in La Liga at Barcelona, much the same as Anthony at Betis, would do really, really well. And he'd also be playing with much better players. So I think it would be a great move for him. I think it'd be a great move for Barcelona. And also, they get a huge brand player as well. He's surely a bigger brand player than Luis Diaz. I mean, I know Luis Diaz is Colombian, isn't he? So there'll be a lot of support there. But I think it makes a lot of sense for everybody. And but the issue might be when you've got a choice between Luis Diaz and Rashford. To be fair, I don't think anyone's going to sit here and go, "You got to pick Rashford," or "You got to pick Diaz." I think that Deco, I can understand why he might be going towards Luis Diaz. I hope they go to Marcus Rashford, because obviously I think it's a great move for him. It's a great move for Barcelona, and it'd be an exciting move. I think it's always exciting to see what former players do. So, look, it's up in the air at the moment. I suppose it's down to Barcelona fans what they want to push for, but I think he'd be a success there. I think we saw again last night. I just think the Premier League is a different animal for wingers, and there is definitely an opportunity there for all parties. You just hope it works quicker. Linda says, I think Diaz might go to Saudi. Don't forget, get PSG beat 5 Premier League teams, says Protect. That's got absolutely nothing to do with anything. You've just literally taken a comment, not listened to it, and attracted yourself to one team who is probably the best team in the world at the moment with an amazing squad. Yeah, I don't know what that's got to do with anything. That's just one team. Barcelona can probably live with most Premier League teams, but in general, especially in the Europa League where you haven't got the elite teams and you start to see the teams that are third and below, I don't think they can live with the Premier League football. Hello from LA Mark. Do you think that the club culture will change? Well, look, alternatively, why is it that Spurs and Man United cruised into the final of the Europa League? Why is it that Anthony can't perform in the Premier League but can perform in La Liga? Explain it. Trina says, I'm from LA. Great stuff. Hope you're doing well, Trina. Do you think that the club culture will change with Amorim in charge this summer? And do you think there are positive feelings about the transfer window within the club? I'll tell you what I think about Ruben Amorim, honestly, because obviously I back him and I want him to do well, but I'm also not blind to the criticisms. One thing I would say is I think there's a slight naivety there. A lot of people keep doing these clips about Sporting. It's totally and utterly irrelevant and non-comparable. What I think is really naive is that when you run a football club like Manchester United, then you have to be aware of what that football club is. And when that football club is in debt and money is God, then you have to be really clever. And I think that the Garnacho situation to me and the Rashford situation to me wasn't handled in the best possible way. And then what I mean by that is both players should be moved on because the manager obviously wants them to move on. But the way it was played out publicly, it hasn't helped us. I mean, I don't know what price we could have got for Rashford, but I know we would have got more if in January we hadn't heard about he's lazy in training, that's why he's not in the team, and Rashford hadn't done that interview at that school. If it had been handled more professionally, we would have got more money for him because he went to Villa and did quite well. With Garnacho, we were talking about 60 million in January, and a lot of people were saying don't do it. We're now talking about 45 million and everybody's saying do it. And that to me is just, for a club that is flying to the other side of the world for 8 million, that manager has lost us probably 15 million on how we've handled the Garnacho situation. So that would be my feedback on Amorim, as I think sometimes his honesty, which we like, doesn't suit a club that's so focused on money. I think if you're at Man City and you're Pep Guardiola and you look at the way I like Amorim, I'm not criticising him, but I think sometimes it doesn't suit the football club, because if you're Manchester City, look at Cancelo. Pep made that very publicly, get out of my football club, don't care if you're worth £50 million, off you go. And Man City are just sort of like, we don't care, money. But at Man United, we're so money focused. The ruthlessness doesn't fit. I want Amorim to do what he's done, but the club doesn't suit it because it's so focused on bloody money, which is what we hear about all the time. Jay says, hi Mark, just curious, did you see that video of Anthony becoming emotional talking about his time at Man United? No. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it. And to be honest with you, I haven't got enough time to focus on the past. I need to focus on the future. Anthony's not part of our future, so we just need to move him on. If the Premier League is so great, why isn't the Premier League team in the Champions League final? Just can't see, again, somebody else who just hasn't agreed, hasn't listened at all. I'm doing a news show, mate. I'm not going to repeat myself again. It was very, very clear what I said. You're just going, why are Premier League teams not winning the Champions League? That's not what I said. I said the intensity of the Premier League is better and quicker than any other league, and that is why Man United and Spurs have got to the final of the Europa League, and that is why Anthony does better in La Liga than he does in the Premier League. That's what I said. You're taking the very best teams in Europe and saying, why aren't Man United winning the Champions League? Just won the Europa League, just won the Conference League, just got an extra spot in Europe because we've done so well in the Champions in Europe. I just hate it when people don't listen to a very unique conversation and start going, well, why didn't we win the Champions League? What about PSG? I hope this doesn't happen, but I could see Barca going for Gyökeres on a permanent and trying to get Rashford on loan to Football Analytics. I think anything's possible at the moment, in the sense that we are in a crisis. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen next with Manchester United in relation to transfers. It's very difficult to sort of project what's going to happen next with us, because I just don't know what the next step's going to be. All I know what's happening next is we're playing Hong Kong tomorrow lunchtime. That's all I know. It's June in 2 days' time as well. These players are going to be going on holiday. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do next. But I don't think Barcelona would go for Gyökeres, really. I think they want a winger. Anders says, we have to be prudent. Yeah, why is that, Omar? Anything to do with the fact that the Glazers have bled us dry? The ownership is a joke, has been for years. Thank you very much, Anders. And Jared says, let's use our brains for once. We were never and are not getting Gyökeres or Osimhen, never in a trillion years. So what next, Jared? That's what we're talking about. What next? And not playing in Europe ruins the window. No top player wants to play once a week, no matter how big United are. That's the truth. I think that's an interesting point from Scott as well. As a top player, I don't think many of us are relishing the prospect of next season watching 3 days of European football, every other week, and United not playing. And I think as a top player, that's maybe not a big pull either. So, look, but having said that, it's a World Cup year. Money talks. The trouble you're going to have with what we did in the past, like when we got Paul Pogba, we weren't in the Champions League. So what we did with Paul Pogba is we rang him up and we said, these are the wages, they're very good. Then we spoke to his agent and went, this is the signing on fee, it's very good. And Paul Pogba signed. Oh, and the third thing was, this is the project. We'll be back in the Champions League in a year, which we were. So it's good wages, it's good agent fee, and we'll be back in the Champions League in a year. So you might not agree with that 3-step plan, but that's what we did. And we did it with other players as well. So, as I said, were we better off with just a Glazer ownership than a Glazer Sajim ownership? Because Sajim won't give those wages, won't give that agent fee, and won't be able to promise Champions League football in a year either. So whether we're better with Sajim and the Glazers or better with the Glazers on our own, where we are at the moment, I think we need to be ringing up a Gyökeres or an Osimhen and going, there's the wages, there's the agent fee, and we want to be back in the Champions League in a year. But because of the Sajim connection now, he doesn't want to do that. So we're not even going to roll the dice anymore. And there are people in the chat saying we can't offer silly wages anymore. Well, good luck playing mid-table football for the next 5 years then. I couldn't give a shit about monopoly. I couldn't give a toss about bank balances. It's idealistic to say we want to bring the wage bill down. Look at where we are. There's no point knocking one out because we've got the 7th best wage bill in the Premier League and we used to be top of the league when we're playing mid-table football. You know, somewhere along the line, there's a correlation between the wage you pay and where you are in the league. There's a reason Brighton haven't got the biggest wage bill in the world and they're not in the Champions League. There's a reason Man City do and are. There's a reason Chelsea do and are. So this whole weird cult of, oh, look at what Sir Jim's doing, he's reducing the wage bill. The wage bill was too big. I don't think the wage bill was ever massively a problem in the context of, I don't mind if Man United pay the most wages in the Premier League. The problem was we paid big wages to total shit. That was the problem. I don't mind having 3 or 4 players on 250 grand a week. What I mind is having 3 or 4 players on 250 grand a week who aren't worth 150 grand a week. That was the problem. So, yeah, we've got an owner now in Sir Jim Radcliffe who isn't probably going to pick up the phone and offer the money that's required. Because you tell you what, if you're Arsenal and you're talking to Gyökeres, you're basically saying the wage is this, the plan is this, and we're not going any higher. We want to win the Premier League, we want to win the Champions League, we want you to be the player in the system, but we're not going to go to silly wages because if you don't, we'll go for someone else. Man United can't be there going, yeah, we're not paying more than Arsenal either because we want to get in the top half of the table. We're not even in Europe and we're not paying silly wages either. You've got to go, we're not in Europe. We're not going to win the league, but we will give you 260 grand a week. You've got to pay a little bit more when you're in a position like us. You can't go, we're not going to pay a little bit more. Look, we're paying Cunha 200 grand a week, apparently. So, not playing Scott Davies, I think we read that. Mark, have you tried getting the United Strand on, says Gibson. I haven't, no. Mark, maybe next season. Look, he's going to have long hair for a while. We're not in a rush. I have spoken to him a couple of times, but yeah, United Strand, there's no games for 3 months. He's got to win. Man United have got to win 5 games in a row. I think he's going to have long hair till at least 2028. I can't see us winning 5 games in a row next season. I just can't. To win 5 games in a row, even with Carabao Cup games, you've still got to win probably 4 Premier League games as well. I can't see it. He ain't getting a haircut for a long time, is he? You ever seen that character in the Addams Family that wears the glasses over the big long hair? I believe Marge Simpson he will be. Call him Marge. Mark, I believe Maresca was Delap's manager in youth team in City, which is why I think he's luring him to Chelsea. Cheers, love channel, says Chilled Llama. Well, Wilcox has ruined it. Ruined it's not right. Bottled as it's not right. But look, Wilcox was very confident, and maybe, I don't know why. I don't know. It's not over yet. We are being coercively manipulated into mediocrity, says Ashish. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you look at where we are as a football club, where we've just finished in the league, where we are now, what's going on, you would look at it 10 years ago and go, there's no way the Glazers would be allowed to still be in charge of the club, and yet they are. Who will get the Europa League spot that would have gone to the Conference League winners, says Mass. Please don't tell me you think Man United could get it. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's not Brighton. I think, I don't know where it goes, but it's not Brighton. William says, funny thing is, the Asian team only played with each other 2 times in existence. They were using Spurs tactics with the United's own 3-4-3 formation, and we still got outplayed. We definitely got booked off, says William. Thank you very much for that. And if the Premier League is... sorry, I'll come back to that. The only pull we have right now is whichever manager player takes us back to the glory days, they'll be remembered forever. Love the show, mate, says Ibrahim. Ashi says, dream summer window. I want to remain positive. Always wanted a season with no Europe. A proper manager is stubborn in his system to drill it in, says Ashish. No Europe means no good signings, not always. Newcastle did it. The real issue is our board can't sell the United project to players. We are still a mess. The better he does, the more Amorim will get pelters, says Robert McCormack. Kieran, I don't know who you're talking about there, Robert. I presume that might be a little bit to do with something else. Maybe Rashford, I don't know. If I wasn't moving to Montenegro, I would be crying, says Garfield. And hi, Mark. Would you say it's a good transfer window if we sign Cherki and Gyökeres, but no one else? I can't deal with these hypothetical fantasies, you know. They make me want to cry. I can't answer that question because it's just so beyond the realms of possibility at the moment. Suffice to say, if we signed Gyökeres, Cherki and Cunha, I think it would be a positive. If we sign Gyökeres, it would be a huge positive. I think I said a few days ago I'd be running around the garden with my top off. So, look, a player of that quality who's played in an Amorim system would be a huge step forward because goals win games. But I don't think it's realistic where we are at the moment. Something big would have to change. And it can change. Look, as I always said, we're not in talks with Semenyo and we never have been. It doesn't mean we won't sign him tomorrow because Man United might suddenly pick the phone up and go like that. That's how the transfer window can work. The Casemiro and Antony thing I mentioned a few minutes ago is an exact example of that. We were not looking at signing those 2 players. We lost our first 2 games of the season under Ten Hag and they shit themselves and went, we better go and buy those players. So if the Delap deal falls through, traditionally, I think we would have picked the phone up to Gyökeres and Osimhen. But with Sir Jim in the charge, I don't know whether we will. And that's what I'm trying to sort of generate the thought process for, because it's a difficult one for people to move past. It's impossible to say we were better off with just the Glazers in charge. But actually, in a transfer sense, we probably were, because we knew that when things were going wrong, they were likely to just write a cheque. I don't think we are likely to write a cheque under this ownership. He's likely just to go and sack more people. So I don't like the Sir Jim Ratcliffe input into Manchester United. I hate the Glazer input, but I actually think it was slightly better. Certainly in a transfer approach, but that's a debatable one. Scott says, as a big club as Man United are, do you think they can still pull the top players with the uncertainty and not playing in Europe and no guarantee to qualify next season? And I think this is a great point by Scott. I think when we've not been in Europe before, and you will all feel the same as me, when we've not been in Europe before, there's always been this feeling that, oh, God, it's annoying, but we'll be back next year. I've always felt that. Always felt that. Like, when Moyes messed it up and Van Gaal came in, I always felt we'd be back in a year. When Mourinho came in and we were in the Europa League, I was like, we'll be in the Champions League next year. It's just gradually got worse. Like, it used to be, you're in the Europa League, but we'll be in the Champions League next year. It's now, we're not in Europe, and I don't think we'll be in Europe next year. And that's the problem when you're signing a player, because their agents aren't stupid. The player might not be that switched on, but the agent isn't stupid. He'll be looking at it and going, you've written into here that when you're in Europe, my player gets a pay increase. But I can't factor that in because I don't think you'll be in Europe. Sorry, I've just had a message here about a player. Let me do that. Did you see? I've done that one. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. If a big difference in the Premier League, why we lost to other leagues stick primarily to Premier League players? Don't know what this is all about, Richard. I genuinely think some people are not listening to what I said. We were talking about Marcus Rashford going to Barcelona and why I thought he'd be a success. Basically, in a very succinct analysis, the Premier League causes a lot of European clubs problems because of its intensity and speed. Antony has been a revelation in La Liga, but he struggles in the Premier League. Rashford, I think, will do the same in Spain. And I remember him playing against Porto for that first half and he tore them apart. There is something about predominantly European football that is slightly slower and slightly less intense and certainly less fit. So I think you can go to the European leagues and blossom. Look at Scott McTominay, ridiculously fit, does so well there. I'm not saying the Premier League has the best teams in the world because obviously look at the Champions League final. I also think Barcelona are good enough to beat most Premier League sides, but predominantly look at Man United and Spurs getting to the final of the Europa League as well. We really did overpower teams physically and with intensity and fitness in virtually every game we played. We were unbeaten until the final. And guess who we lost to? A Premier League club. That's what I was talking about directly about why I think Rashford at Barcelona would be a really good move for them and why he'd do really well. And I think that was the point I was making. My name isn't real. Says no merchandise, new jersey skips, matches, empty stadiums are the only way to affect the change that the club truly deserves. Everyone needs to do it. Fab linked us with Gyökeres. Who else is he linked him to? Says Brad B. Fabrizio's not really given a Gyökeres update in a week. His last big update was just before the Europa League final. So Arsenal, I still think he'll end up at Arsenal. I really do. Do you think the amount of work that needs to happen, we aren't moving fast enough? Not just buying, but we have a few players to sell as well, says John. We need the market to move quick, basically. I think what Liverpool have done in the market is good. And if other clubs start doing it as well, then it will start the merry-go-round. But United aren't in a position to dictate the market. We can't walk in and say, buy our players. And we need money to buy other players. So we're very dependent on other clubs moving the market. I think we've spent predominantly what we have on Cunha, and now we need to sell to buy. So we need this market to move quickly. It's a bit like a housing market, isn't it? We can't move until we've got a buyer for our house. But for that to happen, you need a vibrant market. Brian says, do you think other clubs worry about buying our players permanently because they worry about the mentality that comes from our dressing room to theirs? I disagree with that now, Brian. I think clubs are looking at Man United and going, there's players there that are underperforming that when you take them out of that environment, there's probably some real gems there. I mean, look at Antony at Betis. Rashford did well at Villa. Obviously, Scott McTominay, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. There's probably others as well. So I'd be looking at Garnacho and going, get him for as cheap as we can. He's only 20. I bet he's going to be a really good player in a different environment. Obviously, he needs a little bit of work. So I think that there are players that you would look at. Not everybody. I mean, I'm not going to look at Luke Shaw or Mason Mount or Garte at the moment. I'm not going to look at, De Ligt or Mazraoui because they've not been there long enough for me to think that. But I think that there are players that you'd look at Man United and go, I'll take a punt on them. Definitely, yeah. Rookie says, will offering stupid wages keep us in this hole of poor mentality and poor attitude as it's offering up more easy rides? Potentially, Rookie, but do you not think that in a state of desperation you need to do something desperate? We can sit here and say we're not spending silly money and we'll die, or we can try and take, and that's why Gyökeres to me was always worth the money, because there's no risk. Other than him flopping, there's no risk. Amorim knows him, he knows Amorim, he knows the system, he's a goal scorer. I'd spend the money. I'd spend a little bit more. If it meant spending 30 grand a week extra on his wages to make him come to Man United, I would do it. Because, all right, it's desperate, but it's calculated. Igshan says, do you think this is our lowest that we can go in a season, so then there is only upwards? Look, The scary thing about that is that when people say things can only get better, to what point? Yeah, I agree things can only get better, but are you going to sit there for the next 3 years and be really happy with 10th? Are you gonna start singing things can only get better? Like, that's my point. Of course things can get better, but they're not going to go to the standards you want them to. People won't be singing and dancing in the streets if we finish 10th and win nothing next year, but it will still be an improvement. You'd still be able to go, well, at least it wasn't as bad as last season. And then the next year you might get 9th. Oh, at least this is not Manchester United. Like, it's not about things can't get any worse. It's about the minimum standards that are acceptable. Manchester United must be in Europe every year. We're Manchester United. I'm doing it myself now. But we are. I've always said this, and I haven't said it for a while. We are the Bayern Munich of England. We are the PSG of England. We are the Real Madrid of England. We are the big club in England. Now, Liverpool fans might have an issue with that. That's fine. But I don't think any Liverpool fan could argue that it's an argument between who is the biggest club in England. It's us or them. We're not even in Europe again. So I can't sit here and say, well, things can't get any worse, so they can only get better. Next year, the year after that, the year after that, if we're not in the top 4, that's embarrassing. And it won't be as bad as this season, but it's still not good enough. So that, to me, is the big issue here, is like, what's better? The only thing that's better than this is being in Europe every year. And I'm not talking about the bloody Conference League. We need to be in the Champions League every year. That's where we need to be. So I don't agree that things can only get better, because finishing 10th every year and not being in Europe is better than this, but it's not better. It's still shit. But I don't think it can get any worse unless it does. What do you think is a good transfer window? I was asked this right at the start of the show, so I'm just going to quickly answer this. It came in from... It's frozen. Let it snow. Okay, where did it go? I can't remember the exact question. It was from Ashish. What's your dream summer window and what players? Am I doing the... I'm not going to do the dream. I'm not going to do the dream. I'm going to do a dreamed reality, okay? So I do sell Bruno. Sorry. Bruno goes. Garnacho's obviously going to go. Rashford's gone. So I've got about 150 million in my pocket. I've probably got more than that, actually, but give the Glazers 30 for their fucking debt interest. I've got 150 million pounds in my pocket, and I would have more than that because Bruno's 100, Rashford might be 30, Garnacho might be 40, Anthony. So I've probably got 200, but give me 150, yeah? 150, I've got Cunha, down payment 1, 20 million. Gyökeres, down payment 1, 30 million, that's 50. Edison, down payment 1, that's 80. Get me another number 10, down payment 1, 20, and then a goalkeeper. I'd be very happy with Gyökeres, Edison, Cunha, another number 10, a goalkeeper. Be very happy with that. But to do it, I'd have to sell Bruno, Rashford, Garnacho. I'd take that. It is a dream, but it's also quite reality because I'm not bringing a centre-back in, which I would like as well. But so that would be my dream reality. Barcelona most likely to sign Rashford as he'll be cheaper than Diaz, asking price of 85 at all. Just wanted to United. So I think the thing about Diaz as well for Barcelona fans is that because Diaz is contemplating Saudi, you will have to pay a lot of money to get Diaz unless he does the whole, I want to go to Barcelona and I'll take a pay cut. But Liverpool would go, well, that's great, mate, but we're not reducing your fee. So he might be priced out. Obviously, Rashford's not going to go to Saudi. So if a player's open to Saudi, it knocks their price up to the European market. If they're not open to Saudi, it brings their price down. Thank you, everybody, for watching. TK says, we've only had data analysts since 2022, Liverpool since 2015. We're so far behind in recruitment, it will take years to catch up. There we go. We're back at 2 o'clock unless anything happens in between. What day is it today? It's Thursday, 8 o'clock show tonight. So tune in for that. I will speak to you in a bit. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll speak to you in a bit. Thanks for watching.